In this video, I will explain to you 3 ways in which Bitcoin is different from money and why you may want to get more Bitcoin. This is the information that opened up my eyes and let me see that Bitcoin is not the same thing as money. And the fact that it's different is what makes Bitcoin so valuable. Welcome back. I'm George Levy, and I help people understand blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency to make the world a better place. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the differences between money and Bitcoin. Some people think Bitcoin is money, but in this case, I'm talking about traditional money, like dollars, like euros, like yen, just what are known normally as fiat currencies. I'm going to be talking to you about 3 key differences between Bitcoin and traditional money, and why Bitcoin is different and what makes it so valuable. So as we go through this session, the first thing I want to do is talk about the fact that Bitcoin is not money as such. So you can transact in Bitcoin, you can pay for things with Bitcoin, you can buy things with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is different from money. And then notice again, I'm talking about traditional money because not everybody accepts Bitcoin, and some people, when you talk about Bitcoin and money, some people say Bitcoin's a better form of money, but they're different. And I'm going to tell you exactly what those differences are, because their difference is one of the key reasons why Bitcoin is so valuable and why you may want to get more Bitcoins. Okay? So first, I'm going to talk to you about how money works and how it is transferred worldwide. This is very important. Okay? So when I'm talking about money and sending money, right? So let's go right now and let's use an example of 2 parties, right? And those 2 parties are in different places in the world. Here we have the world, right? So in order for me, say party A, to send money to B, right? And we're talking about money, I need to use the services of a third party. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. So if I'm looking at a third party, that third party could be, for example, a bank. That third party could be a credit card, for instance, if you're sending money to someone else. Other options are, for example, MoneyGram or Western Union. That's a money transfer service. It could be something like PayPal, for instance, right? So let's just say here, money transfer service. And the reason why I'm saying that is that this third party controls the transfer. I can't simply just have some money and give them to this party that's somewhere else in the world if I'm actually sending it over the internet. I need to use these third-party services. Why is this important? Because this third party controls the transfer of money. So even if I want to send money to this person, if this third party refuses to do the transfer, I can't send the money. Think about that. If the bank disagrees with me for any reason, they can shut my bank account or simply refuse to do a money transfer. Same thing happens if either the credit card or the money transfer service simply doesn't want to send money over there. I can't simply send money to this other party somewhere else in the world. Traditional money always relies on third parties to be able to do a transfer. And that's important for you to know. When you're talking about money, for instance, if you have your money in the bank, you don't really have any money. Your bank has the money. You see? The money is controlled by these third parties. Okay? Now let me explain to you how that is different from Bitcoin, which is going to be the first way. Then I'm going to show you how things are different. So if we look specifically at doing a transfer over the internet, so again we have party A, then I have party B right here, second party, and I've got the world, and we're going to be transferring over the internet, okay? But in this case, instead of sending money, we're sending Bitcoin. So here we're talking about Bitcoin, okay? In order for me to transfer Bitcoins to someone else around the world, I can do that peer-to-peer. And that's direct. From me to that person all I need from that person is a Bitcoin address. When I get a Bitcoin address from this person, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a system, it could be a computer, it could be anything. In fact, artificial intelligence is doing a lot of transactions using Bitcoin. It's digital exchanges of value. But all you really need is a Bitcoin address. Now, if this second party gives me a Bitcoin address, I can send any amount of Bitcoin that I want to this party without having to ask for permission, without having to fill in forms, without worrying about being interrupted or stopped. This transfer directly over the web, and here comes the big learning, happens over a network of thousands of computers called the Bitcoin network. Okay? So the Bitcoin network is a network of thousands of computers, and those computers never had to ask permission to join the service. There's no one controlling them. For instance, I am part of the Bitcoin network. I have a computer in my home that runs what's known as a full node. That full node is connected to the Bitcoin network, and I never had to ask permission for that. Nobody had to approve me. I could just download the open source software for the full node and run it at home. I'm part of the Bitcoin network. So when a transaction is happening from me or from any party to another party, it goes over the Bitcoin network, okay? The next lesson is that that transaction gets recorded on what's known as the Bitcoin blockchain. And I talk about blockchain a lot in other videos. And the key point I want to tell you is the Bitcoin blockchain keeps a record of every single transaction that takes place on top of the Bitcoin network as it makes its way across the world. Okay? Now, this is very important because this entire structure of the Bitcoin network and what's recorded on the Bitcoin blockchain has what's known as being decentralized. And that's the first thing I want you to know. Difference number one, the Bitcoin network is decentralized. Okay? Because it's decentralized, what that means is that there is no centralized entity that controls the Bitcoin network. That is, there's no CEO of Bitcoin. There's no company called Bitcoin that could basically say, hey, you can't send Bitcoins to the other person. There is no central control over Bitcoin. Bitcoin is decentralized. That's the first big difference. The second big difference that I want to tell you is that Bitcoin is, and I'm going to put it right here, disintermediated. And I know it's a longer word, but being disintermediated means that there is no middle party to stop the transfer, right? Remember what I told you, when you're transferring money, you always have to rely on a third party that's right in the middle, right? That doesn't happen in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, transfers are done peer-to-peer, directly. There's no one to ask permission to. There's no one that can reject the transaction. Everything's done directly, peer-to-peer. That's difference number two. And difference number three is that Bitcoin is what's known as being trustless. Why is it trustless? It's trustless because I don't have to trust that my transfer will go through. If I send some money to someone else using a bank, I have to send the money to the other party and then I have to trust that the money will actually make it there. I never know if my money made it there until the bank tells me that my transfer came through. I have to trust that my bank is actually doing that transaction and actually transferring the money. That's not the case in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, anybody, when I send some Bitcoins to someone else, I can go for myself on a block explorer and I can see if that transaction actually was confirmed. That is, if the other party received my Bitcoins. I can see for myself because it's recorded on the blockchain. So key things I want you to understand. Three big differences between money and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, number one, decentralized. That is, There is no middle third party that controls Bitcoin, like a CEO of Bitcoin. There's no such thing. Number two, it is disintermediated. There is no middle party that can interrupt the transfer of Bitcoins as it makes its way across the Bitcoin network. And number three, it is trustless. I don't have to trust if my transaction will actually go through and if the other person will receive the Bitcoins or if I will receive the Bitcoins. Bitcoin is trustless. At this moment, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, I encourage you to check out this video right here where I go far deeper into the topics.